Pulse rifles, are they meta? Let me just go ahead and say this. Everything in this sandbox, for the most part, has a fighting chance. Pulse rifles, though, are in kind of a squeeze. You got so many weapons that are invading its territory, where pulse rifles used to be the most dominant weapon in that mid-range. You've got auto rifles, most notably 600 round per minute autos. You've got hand cannons, which just got a huge bump there in range. The fact is, when you got weapons like Sturm, with no weapon drop off all the way to 44 meters, it's hard for you to side with the pulse rifle. And then, of course, scout rifles, which just got a target acquisition buff, which, by the way, feel phenomenal. No, not everybody wants to sit in the back of the map with their scout rifle, but if you do want to, you can easily pick enemies off from afar, and they are definitely the dominant force in the long range. But let's talk about pulse rifles. The pulse rifles that are standout as of now have been Vigilance Wing, which actually has a 0.7 time to kill value, only requires half of your shots to even be crits, so super forgiving, and it's one of the better weapons in trials due to its perks. But also no time to explain. No time to explain. Fantastic stats. One of the highest range stats at 82, allowing it to reach all the way up to 37 meters before running into damage fall off. Those are by far, in my eyes, the two best pulse rifles until Stars and Shadow. This has now taken first place as the best pulse rifle in the game. It is dominant. It has one of the best time to kill values at 0.67 seconds, beating out Vigilance Wing. It also rolls with some perks that makes it not just one of the deadliest weapons, but one of the easiest weapons to reach that optimal time to kill value. It does have a number, pretty much every trait in the game just about present in its random rolls, which is why it is somewhat difficult to actually get the god roll for this weapon. Big shout out here to Eric for allowing us to get on his account. Now, a lot of folks have been comparing this pulse rifle to Hopscotch Pilgrim, I guess because Hopscotch was really deadly and Stars and Shadow is also deadly, but purely off of gun model, Stars doesn't look anything like Hopscotch. Matter of fact, this gun model is pulled directly from Final Duty. And you can see the similarities between both of these pulse rifles. Final Duty was a pulse from Challenge of the Elders. Very similar in the gun models. The only difference is Stars and Shadow doesn't come with scopes, which do make a big difference. And for my new players that are here, most of the guns that you have in your hands just have barrel perks. Which are things like Hammer Forge, Full Bore, Fluted Barrel, Arrowhead Break. Those barrel perks simply apply static buffs to a specific stat. What makes scopes so disgusting is that they not only increase certain stats, but they also add on zoom depending on the scope, which greatly increases the range here of your pulse rifle. For instance, Cold Denial was touted as being one of the best feeling high impact pulse rifles in the game, which I gotta say, it does feel good. I love Cold Denial. But its biggest drawback was the fact that Cold Denial, even at max range, couldn't go past 31 to 31.5 meters. Now wait, why is that? 88 range, but only goes up to 31 meters? That seems odd. Well, it's actually because that zoom is 14. Compare that to No Time to Explain at 82 range, but 17 zoom. No Time to Explain can go up to 37 meters. And this makes a really big difference, especially on bigger maps, because any slight damage fall off that you receive can result in you missing out on that 0.67 time to kill value for these high impacts, or your bullets just outright not making contact, which does happen after a certain range. Stars and Shadow, though, has a leg up on both of those weapons and other pulse rifles, as not only does it come with the ability to potentially max out its range at somewhere around 98, which is damn near max, but it also comes with 18 zoom. For instance, when we range test an 88 range Stars and Shadow, the result was 40 meters before damage fall off, and it could probably stretch up to 41 meters with 98 range. And you of course can get that if you also have a ranged masterwork. Now that's a lot of range, but pulse rifles need a little bit of stability, right? The stability stat on Stars and Shadow is not the best, but not the worst. Kind of sits right in the middle, at least amongst other high impacts. But it's definitely worse than No Time to Explain, and especially worse when compared to Vigilance Wing. But this is where it doesn't really matter. Stars and Shadow has the ability to roll with the perk Firmly Planted. Now, Firmly Planted increases your accuracy, stability, and handling when firing while crouched. This trait is nuts. I love it on so many weapons, but for a pulse rifle, it's incredible, as you'll find yourself just landing crit after crit with ease. Now, something I find pretty interesting is the intrinsic perk. High impact frames, slow firing, high damage. The weapon is more accurate when stationary and aiming down sights. Technically speaking, high impact frames, intrinsic perk is already like Firmly Planted. Maybe it's like a Firmly Planted 0.5, but it stacks perfectly well here because when you are crouched, you're stationary. So you're double dipping here in increases in accuracy, aka watch this pulse rifle auto aim for you. Now the trait we have next to it is Headseeker. For many weapons, Headseeker might not be the go-to option for you, but for Stars and Shadow, it adds a little bit of forgiveness, allowing you to 4 crits, 2 body guardians, 8 resilience or less, as Headseeker actually allows the weapon to do 38 damage per crit if you land a body shot. Matter of fact, what I would suggest to everyone that uses Stars and Shadow with something like Headseeker is to start aiming at the chest. Let the first shot be a body shot because the recoil will kick the weapon up and the second and third shot will be crit shots. You do that twice, you just gotta kill 4 crits, 2 body, and pretty much all guardians, because not many people rock more than 8 resilience outside of a few crazy titans like myself, but you will secure that kill in 0.67 seconds. And Firmly Planet aids that greatly. So is Stars and Shadow the best pulse rifle in the game? Yes, it is. It's better than any exotic pulse rifle and any pulse rifle within its own archetype, and it's even better than aggressives. I like Sacred Providence. I think it's a fantastic pulse rifle, but Stars and Shadow beats it out. Something that makes this weapon so deadly is that default zoom of 18, but simultaneously though, the fact that it can also reach up to max range. And when we start really sitting there and seeing the potential of this weapon, it gets crazy. It can actually 3 bursts all the way up to 60 meters, which does lengthen the time to kill a little bit. But the fact that this weapon doesn't lose contact, it still has bullet magnetism up to that point. And again, this is 60 meters with Les's roll. This is not even a max range roll that he's got here. This could probably go even further. And you notice when I try to do the exact same thing to him with either a cold denial or a no time to explain, my shots aren't even registering. That's the difference between Stars and Shadow and every other pulse rifle in the game. By far the most dominant pulse, guys. And again, if you're double stacking that intrinsic perk with high impact frame, as well as Firmly Planet, good things are gonna come. Now for my PvE players, this is a great pulse rifle for PvE for 2 reasons. Number 1, it does solar damage. I got any people in here that are a fan of Adordative? I know, one of my favorite weapons from Vex Offensive. I loved it. However, it's been sunset. Boom. Stars and Shadow can now take its place. Another reason why I like Stars and Shadow, for barrier champions specifically, it comes with Disruption Break. And this season, we have anti-barrier rounds for pulse rifles. Now, a lot of people don't know this, even though we've made like, I don't know, how many videos we made on Disruption Break? At least a dozen. But Disruption Break and its ability to increase your kinetic damage upon breaking an enemy's shield applies to barrier champions' shields, thus resulting in Stars and Shadow. Upon breaking a barrier champion's barrier, this increases your kinetic damage by 50%. So whatever you stack this with, whether it's Izanagi's Burden, whether it's Witherhoard like I'm doing right here, those kinetic weapons and any kinetic weapon will be doing 50% more damage for you when paired with something like Disruption Break. It may not really matter for like, I don't know, at level stuff, but for Grandmaster and things like that, my God, is this important. It makes a huge difference. So don't look at this pulse rifle as only a Crucible pulse rifle. It definitely has a place inside of PvE. On top of that, you got things like Thresh, which allows you to accumulate super energy upon kills. And I really like this trait on primary weapons, as you can just sit there and chew through trash ads. On top of that, you do have Vorpal Weapon, Surplus, Field Prep, Outlaw, Feeding Frenzy. There's a lot of options here that do make this pulse rifle a desirable pulse for PvE. I know I'm kind of like emphasizing it a lot in PvE. I'm mainly doing that because it does for some reason have poor reviews inside of PvE, despite it being a great pulse rifle for both. Like, I don't really know what people want more, as the weapon does come with damage dealing perks like Kill Clip. And you can definitely still rock Kill Clip PvE or PvP. I think Bakken just put out a video where this weapon was actually one bursting inside of Crucible, which is pretty nasty. But I like to choose weapons based on its initial lethality. I don't really like to build up to make a weapon nasty, which is why I like things like Firmly Planet and Headseeker, or in PvE, things like Disruption Break. Those would be the traits that I would track down. Now somebody's gonna bring it up. Cross, what about Quick Draw? All the complaints about this weapon being slow in its handling can be fixed completely with something like Quick Draw. It's not that Quick Draw isn't good. And believe me, there's other good traits in this column. Surplus, fantastic. You can take advantage of Killing Wind. The problem is Firmly Planet is just so good. And Quick Draw kind of pushes me in a situation where I play more close quarter with the weapon, more aggressively. And to me, that almost goes against the identity of the intrinsic perk found on this weapon. That high impact frame wants us to sit in the back of the map, put our booties to the ground, and take advantage of its increased accuracy. And for something like Quick Draw, that kind of works against that. Like that final column, if you want to roll kill clip, if you want to go moving target, dragonfly. I don't really care about that column as much, even though Headseeker is phenomenal at securing those 2 burst kills, but that's whatever. Firmly planted is just the trait you got to go with. Like, you got to go with it, guys. If you have not played with Firmly Planted on a primary weapon, my God, try it today. I like this trait so much that we even reviewed it on a blue auto rifle a few months ago because of how good it is. So yeah, that final column, choose whatever, guys. Go with whatever, but please, for the love of God, go with Firmly Planted, especially if you are rocking a max range roll. You need something to help you there, considering you're not loading anything out in stability. By the way, everything you saw in today's gameplay was a mix of controller gameplay and mouse and keyboard. So don't think this is just for mouse and keyboard users. We had wonderful success on controller, both in the long range and in the short range. All around the board, guys, Stars and Shadow. It's going to be one of the most dominant weapons in this meta, so enjoy it. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.